I'm Christina Heath. I am an IFBB professional bikini athlete. I started back in 2019, so I consider myself still pretty new in the industry as far as bodybuilding. But I started out as a respiratory therapist. I worked in pediatrics for about 5 years, and because I just took off with bodybuilding, I became really, really good at it. Got my pro card in just 3 shows. And I love so much I love everything about medical health, just knowing how the body works, how the body operates. So I became highly fascinated with just the operation side of bodybuilding, knowing that if you have this input, this is the output that you're going to get. So that part about it all was just super interesting. So I went from one side of healthcare to I consider bodybuilding another form of healthcare. Because you're growing in awareness and you're understanding your body, and then as you understand your body, you understand how to help other bodies, and so that's what got me into actually coaching. So I went from pediatric respiratory therapy to full-time coaching just last year, and now I'm full force into coaching because this is truly my passion. And I think that's the good thing about this industry is that our coaches nowadays, they're actually starting to prioritize the studying, the constant studying, because what we learned 5, 10, 20 years ago is not the same practice, right? So it's anything with medicine. And there's things that have adverse reaction with time. So I like the fact that a lot of younger coaches even are trying to educate themselves and actually trying to listen to podcasts, listen to biohackers, like trying to figure out how the body works and how we can optimize the body the best way. I know that with coaches that are young, still getting started in the industry, like just trying to learn more about how the process works. The biggest thing I want to emphasize for those coaches is just understand that what works for your body doesn't necessarily work for everyone else's body, right? So I think people automatically put themselves in a category as a coach if they were able to successfully go through their own prep, when in reality, that was none of their work. That was their coach's work, right? So the biggest thing to emphasize there is just educating themselves outside of their own body, like understand the way it works, understand the process and how to drop fat, things like that, how to manipulate water. But when it comes down to how to operate on someone else's body, that's where the real struggle comes in, because then you have to have patience, you have to have guidance, you have to know how to communicate that with the client when the client's feeling frustrated. So instead of it being like just you operating, it's like now I have to worry about what this client's thinking.
I think people have to realize, like, if you're going to be a coach, the responsibility that is, it's not just like, oh, this is exciting because I can help someone achieve their goals. That's the good side of it. But the bad side is I have a lot of like health responsibility on my hands, especially from a bodybuilding perspective. Like I'm telling this person to get into this physical state. And if I can't get them there and then get them out of that in a safe way, that could be very detrimental to that person's health. So I think we have to see it from both sides, like the goods and the possible bads.
Absolutely. The responsibility is just increased from there, which
Right.
is sometimes can be a little bit of a burden because you want to make sure that you're over delivering the best expectation for the client. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's all about the safety of the patient, I say patient, but it's because I worked in healthcare, but they really are like patients in that sense, clients are. So you really have to think of them as trying to optimize their body, trying to get them to their goal, but doing it in a safe and reasonable way. That's always the number one priority.
Yeah, I think it has to be. So going into your own personal bodybuilding experience, tell us a little bit kind of in detail of how you kind of got into the sport, how you heard about it, and like what led you that into that direction.
Yeah, so back in 2019 is when I did my first show ever. And before then, I was just always in the gym. I was always an athlete. So I did like cross country, long distance. I did a lot more running than anything. Played a little bit of basketball, but the one thing I loved about bodybuilding was because I always had that athlete in me. I wanted something that was made for adults because when you grow up, there, unfortunately, you can't like get into like a group or something like that and just play sports and do stuff like that. Sometimes it's looked at as a little weird. There was a time where I wanted to start my own track team and I was like, well, who's going to do this with me? Absolutely nobody. So when I got into bodybuilding, it was like my place. I felt like this was the only sport there was that you can actually become pro and not have to start when you're 5 years old. Like you can start at 20 years old, 30 years old, 40, 50, and you can get your pro card. So to me, that was super interesting because that just shows that the effort you put in now is going to give you a great outcome if you continue that work, that solid work. But all other sports, in order to be a professional, you pretty much have to start in your younger years. So I was really interested in the bodybuilding world when I kind of got plugged in with other friends that were doing it. I had a lot of good advice whenever I was in the gym atmosphere. People mentioned, hey, you have a great body, you have a great physique. Have you ever mentioned, or have you ever thought about competing? And honestly, at that time, my mindset was all about just eating the junk and eating whatever I wanted. And so I wasn't there yet. But I talked myself out of it for so many years because I said I wasn't disciplined. I kept making up excuses. And when it came down to it, I found my motivator. My motivator was money. So when I pay for something, when I say I'm going to do something, I keep my word. Like that's one thing that is a trait that I want to keep for the rest of my life. But when I committed to a coach, I knew that deep down, if I was to make a payment, do monthly or, monthly payments, weekly check-ins, all that type of accountability, that was going to keep me on track with this goal. And after that, I was just hooked. I loved the control that I had over my body. I won my first show, and then I went into nationals. My second show was during COVID. So I got third place for my second show, which was nationals. And then my third show was North Americans, where I won pro, and I actually won bikini overall. And that was entirely shocking to me because I was still so new in the sport. And I won during COVID, which was like, that was just the hardest thing in the world to try to work out during, the gym shutdown. So, that was where I felt like I was being led. I felt like it was the point where I was like, okay, this is my purpose in life. Like these doors don't just open for a reason, right? So from there, I was like, I got to do something with this. If I'm doing so well at it and I enjoy it, then I need to find a way to keep this in my life, whether I'm still competing or whether I want to coach women going through this similar journey. So that's pretty much how it started. I've been coaching on the side with respiratory therapy for the last 4 years. And just recently, my boyfriend last year, he also left his profession and went into full-time coaching and went from engineer to a coach. I jumped on board with his business, and now we're just growing that business together.
And then when you first got into it, when you were getting ready for your first show, what was driving you as far as like, was it the competitive nature? Like, I want to win, I want to go pro, I want to do all these things in the sport? Was it like, I just want something kind of to do? Was it physique? Like, what was the true kind of driver there?
So I will say that, yes, I do like the fact that my physique was changing. I admired that part about it all. And I was very had a lot of pride in that. But my number one driver wasn't the physique. My number one driver was just finding a hobby, finding a passion of my own, because unfortunately at that time I was going through a really hard time in a past marriage. I was married for 11 years. And when you're married for a long time, you lose yourself, you lose your identity, you lose your purpose. And I didn't have a hobby that was entirely my own. And I supported everything my ex-husband did at the time. And I really wanted something that was mine, that no one could take from me. And so bodybuilding was that. And when I found that identity, it was just like a game changer for me. And I think that's what a lot of people like about bodybuilding, is that it gives you identity, it gives you purpose. And some people, this is all they have. Bodybuilding is it, right? That's like their whole life. And so it does really make a difference with just giving you fulfillment in this life. And for me, it was definitely that.
And you mentioned you felt like you had control over your body. And it's interesting you say it that way, because I feel like so many people from the outside looking in would almost be like, you have to do certain things. And people see that as like giving up control. Whereas you're looking at it from the perspective of like, I do have control because I'm choosing to do these things.
Absolutely. I have complete control. So there's times where, of course, prep is not always the easiest. And I would complain like any other human every so often, but I did enjoy the process. I was not a huge complainer, but the moments where I had to do extra cardio, or I had to do this, or I had to not go to that birthday party because I had other priorities, there were some times where it was difficult, but I was choosing that life. And so I had to constantly remind myself that like, this is what I'm choosing. And this really does make me happy at the end of the day, because there's so much in this life we can't control, that we don't have control over. And I do suffer from anxiety. I know a lot of people do. And one of the biggest things that causes flares in your anxiety or your symptoms is just not having control. And like really manipulating my food, measuring everything out, seeing how those efforts show in my physique, that was control for me. And that was really, if anything, that was freeing. That was a freeing feeling, knowing that I had full control over my own discipline.
It's almost like a backward thought pattern of like, if I can do whatever I want, I'll feel better. When in reality, it's like there's so many options. There's too many options to like truly just go out in the world and be like, what am I going to do today? To me, like you're
Absolutely.
saying, it's like if I have like this set plan, I'm going to go out with more confidence, with more like feeling good about what I'm about to do because I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. But like I said, I think so many people think they're going to feel good when they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. Like when you mentioned, like it's a difference in the mindset, right? I explain this to my clients all the time that the ones that are not successful with having progress are the ones that view the plans, the workout plan, the eating, the meal plan, the workout plan. When you view it all as a burden, you're not going to have great results. But when you view everything as an opportunity to achieve the desired outcome, that's when that's the game changer. That's what changes everyone's whole physique, your whole life. So shifting the way we view things as this is an opportunity instead of it being like more like a burden to my life. And then if you do allow those things to happen and you allow yourself to freely go with the flow, are you still in a place where you're optimizing your happiness? Because I think a lot of people feel like that's going to give them happiness, when in reality, your happiness is linked to so many different things. It's linked to how you feel. It's linked to your physique, how comfortable you feel in your own skin. So if you allow yourself to go off the rails and just live freely, is your physique going to be in a place where you're going to be okay with that? And if you are, that's great. Like, I want you to feel comfortable with yourself regardless of weight, but you have to really be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And structure is the only way to get you actual results that you're looking for. That's the only thing.
So kind of going back again to your own experience in bodybuilding, was getting on stage, was having you know, putting yourself out there like that, was that something that you were just kind of like, oh, this is part of the process, or was it something you were more nervous about? Like, how did you handle that?
So I was extremely nervous. When I tell people this, they're really shocked to hear, but I am very much an introvert, very shy, very quiet at first. I have to have like kind of warm up to people. So the thought of stepping on stage, like half dressed in a bikini, that was very, very intimidating. And naturally, I'm very hard on myself. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So in a way, it actually helped me because then I can kind of like manipulate and work on the things that needed to be in a best place for the stage. But at the same time, it gave me a lot of nerves. So every single show I do, I now know how to cope with the nerves that come with it. So I do get better with that. But in the very beginning, it was very difficult for me. I faked the whole thing. Like when they say fake it till you make it, that is a real statement. And I just put a smile on my face. I was like, I need to trust that I know what I'm doing at this point, because when you're practicing things on repeat, then it just comes to mind naturally. So like the whole posing, the whole process, I was like, okay, I got this. So I kind of have to psych myself out. And everyone has their tactic, right? Like, even though I'm an introvert, I probably backstage, I don't want to talk to people. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I kind of want to like just sit there, maybe listen to music, maybe do whatever I need to do to calm my nerves. But I've realized for me, the best approach to getting past my anxiety is to talk to other girls, distract myself. Like, focusing on other things actually helps me. So having other girls backstage conversing, just trying to change the topic, not necessarily thinking, oh, am I going to get my routine right? Like, just talk to people, really enjoy the experience. And then I really get, excited about the after part. I'm like, I just want my cookie. I just want to go out to eat. I just want to have a good time. So I pump myself up for those things. And that way I'm really excited when I hit the stage. Like, now at this point, I'm like, no matter what my placing is, I didn't lose. Like, I still won. I'm here. So to me, that's something worth celebrating. And I think some people get really wrapped up into the idea of placing, or maybe not disappointing their coach or their team or their friends or whatever it is. But you're right. Every single person backstage is a winner, because not everyone in this world can do this. Like, stepping on stage is a very, very hard thing. Like if you ask the average American to step on stage with a bikini, or even man or any man in the world to do that, they have small clothes too. But like if you ask anyone to go on stage and get critiqued and get feedback and ask the judges to tell them the hard truth, like no one's going to want to do that. So just being there is a huge win.
It's just so much going on up there that I don't think the average person really thinks about.
Yeah, and then that's another point too, because like even if you're practicing when you have all your nutrients, right? Like you know how to do your posing, it's effortless. But when you're dehydrated, you're on stage, you're starving, and you know us bikini girls, we go last. So we're always like the hungriest ones there. But by the time you step on stage, you have to deal with extreme cramping sometimes. Maybe you are super just tired or weak, or just really anticipating having food because maybe the timing is just off. But there's so many other different challenges that come up with being on stage, that there's so many things opposing you, right? You're on stage and you have your body literally working against you, and you're just trying to do a flawless routine. So there's some things that we go through that not a lot of people explain or talk about. And thank God for good coaches that actually know how to make sure that we're not too dehydrated, that we're not like have any other issues with that. But I have dealt with crazy cramping on stage before, a really bad Charlie horse on stage actually. And I was like, I need to get off stage. This is not good. I was actually backstage and a girl like had to massage it out, and I got called back on stage and I'm like, I don't want to go. So it was really rough. But that was probably the worst experience I had with like extreme cramping and having to actually keep the same composure on stage.
You know, you kind of mentioned it there. You can do all these things physically, but what about like mentally? How do you mentally get ready, and how do you know, take advantage and try to train your mind to be able to be in that situation?
Well, for me, I'm always looking ahead. So I'm very like set on, let me get through this so I can get through this. So with my focus on the future, it really does help alleviate whatever pain I'm going through temporarily. And that's been something that has been helping me through prep. So if I'm struggling with hours and hours and hours of cardio, I'm thinking, okay, this is short term. I'm getting to this goal. So next week, after I complete this show, I'm not going to be doing hours and hours. So there's going to be my relief. So I think some people that get really wrapped up into more negative mindset, or maybe it affects them negatively, is when we're still stuck in the moment and we're not thinking, okay, this is temporary. Let me do what I have to do now to get to this place. I can do anything. Like my coach one time was like, okay, I have to give you 2 hours of cardio. Are you up for this? And I'm like, I can do anything for a week. Like this is just 1 week. I can do this. And when you think of it that way, instead of thinking of it as, wow, this is going to really suck, I don't want to do 2 hours a day, and you're thinking of it in the moment, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your mindset through the whole thing. And then it might actually affect you on stage too, because you're not thinking about it in a positive way. So that's just something that I do, is I look forward and I think ahead so that way I can get prepared, or at least get in a positive mindset.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. You know, I think back on like some really challenging workouts I've done, and I used to run a little bit. I used to do a little cycling and stuff like that too. And I can't even like I don't really remember the pain of it. I don't remember the suffering of it that much. I more remember like how I got through it. I remember like, oh, that was great that I could overcome that. It's so, yeah, it's so true. Like if you just push yourself, you can, like you said, you can do anything for a short period of time. Like the body is so resilient. If you're just mentally strong enough to like say, I'm gonna continue moving my legs, or I'm gonna, push out that last rep, your body's gonna do it. It's just a matter of, are you mentally tough enough to do it?
Absolutely. That is so true. And it's like I think about all these athletes that have been able to overcome so many great things in life. And that's the biggest thing that separates them, right? It's that mental mindset of pushing just one more rep, one more mile, just one more of something is going to get you that result. So doing that long term, that consistency, it produces the endurance, and that endurance is what causes you to win.
If I ever feel like I want to do something and achieve something, I don't necessarily think I have to be the best at this. I just think like I just have to withstand like all of the hardship of it. I have to do it longer than everybody else, because I feel like especially nowadays, people are somewhat less resilient whenever those things do come up. So if you can just like withstand the hardship of it, you know, you might not necessarily be at the very top, but just by outlasting the majority of people, you're going to be somewhere close to the top.
Absolutely. And that's something that I've actually had to personally work on for me as a coach, because my mindset is like up here when it comes to you get a plan, you execute the plan, no questions asked. Like I'm like the easiest client. When my coach tells me to do something, I say, yes, ma'am. And I just do it. I don't ask questions. I don't say, hey, should we do this instead? I don't question it. I fully trust what she has to say. I respect what she does, and I just execute. But other people, you know, I know that they're a little bit more like, well, what if I do this? What if I do that differently? But if you just execute what's given before you, like, and not be the one that has to put the energy into thinking, that really eliminates all the stress for you, because now you just have a plan. Now you just execute. Instead of putting your energy into wondering if this is the best plan, you put your energy into actually executing the plan and just seeing the results show. Plus, you're eliminating your stress, right? Your cortisol is actually decreasing because you're not over here thinking, and now you're putting yourself in this mental fatigue because all you're thinking is, well, what if this plan's not right? What if this is my body's not adjusting right? What if this? What if that? And that's a whole nother ball game. So
No, yeah, I can 100% relate to that feeling. I just recently got a coach, I don't know, last July or something, June. And since then, it's like it's so much easier just to be told what to do, because I'm kind of similar in a way of like, I don't really care what it is, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But before that, I would question myself so much because I would, I have this background where I kind of know what to do, but then I might see something new and I'm like, oh, let's try that. Or I'm kind of bored with that kind of doing it that way. So I'm going to switch it up. And just wasn't like, it wasn't working. It wasn't enough time. And now that I've, you know, stuck with a similar thing for long enough, it really has shown me that, just put it in the hands of somebody else. Don't try to make all the decisions. Don't, especially when if that's all that you're doing, maybe, but like if you have other stuff to do, other stuff going on, you're just going to go crazy and you're going to end up, getting nowhere really.
yeah. And for me, I work primarily with lifestyle. I have about 5 competitors right now. I keep my competitor list very, very low so I can focus on them, but I have a lot of lifestyle clients. So for me, I have to make sure that I go from coach mode with the competitors to, okay, now I need to soften myself a little bit with the lifestyle clients, because my expectation remains the same. Like I still want them to push with intensity. I still want them to challenge themselves, but you really have to meet the client where they are, you know? So it's like, I have to switch my hat a little bit at times where I'm like, really like, nope, we got to do this. And then I'm like, okay, let me be a little bit more gracious and give you a little bit more, time to adjust to this lifestyle, because it's not that easy for lifestyle clients. They're literally just trying to do one little thing at a time and hoping that's going to produce enough results to give them more motivation to continue the next day. So I have to be very, very patient with those clients.
How do you though, as like a pro bodybuilder, how do you kind of like relate to that lifestyle client and show them that, hey, even though I'm at this level, you might not have the same aspirations as me, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that's been something I've been actually going through and trying to figure out a good coaching strategy when it comes to that, because I have had clients come out and say, I would love for you to coach me, but I'm a little intimidated by the process, or I'm afraid that I'm going to disappoint you. And the biggest way for me to actually help those clients is relate to them and share with them my story and say, you're at this place. I was at that place too. But just know that just like you, I did not know what I was capable of. I never had aspirations of becoming a pro bikini athlete. Like it just fell into my lap. It was a great opportunity. I picked it up and I ran with it when I found that passion. But this happened all so quickly. This isn't something that I've been seeking for years and years. So when I explain to them that if you just say yes, you'll be amazed at how many opportunities present itself. Just say yes to something. If this is a direction that you want to go, stop saying no. Stop denying, a route that your life could go. You're literally closing off that place. So I tell them my story. I tell them I struggle with food just like you do. I'm a human. I struggle with binge eating just like you do. These are the strategies that have helped me get to this place. I recently went from eating Taco Bell every day and Chick-fil-A, like those are my favorite places. I went from that to this lifestyle of eating clean, and I enjoy it. And this is how I was able to accomplish that. So I relate to them, and that honestly has been awesome for them because they feel like I'm now on that level to where I can actually respect what they're going through.
And I think you have to take that time and you have to build that relationship. But as as a bodybuilder, how do you feel like you kind of utilize the information, the experience, the back and forth from those lifestyle clients? How do you feel like you utilize that within your bodybuilding?
For me, it's actually, like surprisingly, I actually have a lot of clients that have kids and families, and I actually use them as inspiration for me. So whenever I see my clients that have a family, because I don't have children right now, and I do want kids eventually. So seeing moms killing it, they go to the gym, they work out, and they're getting six packs, and their relationship with their husbands may be improving, and the household is still running smoothly. Like when I see these women tackle all these goals, to me, it's inspirational. Even though I'm their coach and they're probably looking at me as an inspiration, I look at them because I'm like, this is awesome. We need more women like this to set the bar, set the standard, and set the example. So even though I'm in a different place, I still look at that as I want to eventually get to their level too in a different aspect of life. So I use that as motivation for me to know that it is possible to be a mom, have a healthy pregnancy, and possibly lose all that weight and get back your body that you worked hard for. Like I look at all these as great examples and something that I want to strive for when that time comes. And that definitely keeps me motivated because I see that life doesn't always have to be me thinking only bodybuilding. I can look outside of that and think, okay, what is it like in real life? What is it like when you have a career, when you're a mom? Because for us women, it's different. Men can focus on bodybuilding for all their life and not have to worry about their bodies changing. For us women, we have to think about those things. But when you see really good examples out there in the world, it keeps you freaking motivated as hell. Because you're like, these girls are killing it. I know that I can be on that level if I wanted to.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.
Yeah. No, it is. It's true. Everybody's going through something. Everybody has like a story. It's just a matter of like trying to connect with somebody and interact and, learn from them, and they pick something up from you. But something that you said prior to that, it reminded me of a quote, and I'm trying to think of it so I can get it right, but it's something like, you can't improve, or you can't start improving until you stop getting in your own way, or something to that effect. So within coaching, how do you get that message across to a client? Like we can train as much as we want, we can eat as on plan as much as we want, but we also have to be careful of these other habits and activities that we may be doing that are hindering some of our progress. Like how do you get that message across, I guess?
So with my lifestyle clients, I work primarily with the mental side of things. It is so easy to give them a workout plan, a meal plan, and you give it to them and hope that they execute it. But the challenging part about lifestyle clients is actually helping them through the mental battle, because there's a constant switch of mindset that they have to have. Because a majority of these clients are negative self-talkers. They constantly think of themselves as not capable, or they give excuse after excuse. And there's been a programming of that. So within the years and years, they built this habit of constantly negatively speaking to themselves in a way of never accomplishing things. And that's what holds them back. So I have to bring this to their attention, let them become aware of how they're actually speaking to their inner self. And I help them by giving them recommendations for audiobooks to listen to. I have a list of books that I've personally listened to that has helped me get through the mental side. So I give them a list to read. I tell them, hey, look, we're here to focus on improving all of us, like our whole body, not just the scale, but we need to improve this. We need to improve how we feel about ourselves. We need to improve how we speak to other people. If you learn to improve your whole self, you will be a huge benefit to people around you. You're going to be a better mom, a better friend, a better wife. So let's work on all of us and be humble enough to say that we need work. So I'll present that to a majority of my clients. They'll listen to these books. It really helps them through. And then we start with very, very small habit changes. We say, let's go from drinking no water to drinking half of a gallon. Let's see if we can accomplish that. And then we just take baby steps to getting more progress in time.
It's interesting you bring that up. I would definitely love to hear some of those books that you recommend. That's one thing I started was a podcast book club for that same reason, because the mental side of it, I feel like that is literally everything. If you're trying to do something, it has to start upstairs, your brain will put a stop to it immediately if you don't have that part of it right first. So
I think the good thing about this time and age is that we've gotten away from cable, and that's great because now we're not feeding ourselves with stuff that makes no sense and that has no value. But now, like you said earlier, we have so many resources. We have Google. We have so many different things that can teach us things, right? So we need to take advantage of that. This is the only time that we've ever had access to all these resources. So why not optimize what we know, the knowledge we can gain, and really just feed ourselves with constant positivity. And the one thing that I've done for myself is that I'm really big on trying to improve myself in every small way. And I've told myself that I refuse to sit in silence again. Whether if I'm meditating, that's great. If I'm taking some time to decompress, but there is no point in me just sitting in silence and not actually educating myself. I need to constantly be feeding myself with something, even if it's in the background and I don't think I'm listening to it, I am receiving it. So just having something playing in the background while I'm cleaning, doing my makeup, doing other things, I actually am growing from that. And it has been really huge. And just listening to books, that's going to help me be a better person. And sometimes the sad part is you don't even realize you were missing something. Right? How many times do we drive in our car and we're sitting in silence and you get all the way home and you're like, did I literally just not even listen to anything? Right? Because you're so focused on whatever it is that you're focused on. But if you just have something playing in the background, it can affect your mood in time. So just having something that you enjoy, like you said, your music that you listen to, anything that you like, just having that just makes a huge difference with how you're going to just be productive after that point. So
yeah. And then going to kind of your clients, how do you, if there's, whether it's a bodybuilding client or a lifestyle, it doesn't really matter, because I think everybody has those times in life when we lose a little bit of that focus, right? So how do you try to get that person back on track and help them reestablish that focus?
So there are times where my clients start to maybe feel like they're far behind. I mean, this is a common thing in a lot of competitors, or maybe they're feeling like, I don't know if I have it in me. I've never had a client feel like they need to quit. I just had it more clients felt like questioning themselves, wondering if they had it in them or wondering if they had the physique. And I have to constantly remind them that this is not a competition with the other girls. This is a competition with yourself. You have to look and see where you started, compare where you started to where you are now. And I promise you are going to be excited as hell, because there's been so much physical change, but there's also been a lot of mental change too. And the fact that you're able to overcome more than what the average person can, that's enough for you to feel excited about. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, and please know from me speaking to you out of experience that once your show is over, you're going to miss the hell out of it, right? You're going to miss the journey. You're going to miss the process. We all do as competitors. So stop thinking about do I have it in me? Do I not? Like, just actually enjoy this experience because it's going to fade away. It's going to be gone, and really just partake in this moment and just know that this is something you're going to miss when it's all said and done.
Explain a little bit about what that, like what it's like to be in that moment. It's like during prep per se, and you're trying to appreciate it. You're trying to like enjoy it. Like, but at the same time, it can be physically and mentally just so stressful and so demanding. Like how do you do it? Like tell us a little bit about that.
So for me, I really, really kind of going back with what I said earlier, I love having control over things. And it actually reduces anxiety for me. And so actually having complete structure is the thing that I really need. I need to know that every morning I'm going to wake up, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get my work done. Like I have to have that structure in place for me to feel fulfilled and have purpose and just know that I'm being productive. So I find joy in those things by completing tasks. I'm very task driven. So when I know that my coach gives me this much cardio and I complete it, I find fulfillment in that process. So I think when you start to understand yourself a little bit better, you know what you actually enjoy. You can actually start to identify these things as you complete them, and you can give yourself praise. Like that's one thing I tell my clients all the time. Don't be afraid to pump yourself up. Don't be afraid to say, you look beautiful. You look great. You freaking have abs. Like that's insane. Like talk to yourself in a way that might come off as conceited, and that's okay. But like you got to pump yourself up. You got to be your biggest cheerleader. Your coach is not your only cheerleader here, right? You got to also be that for yourself. And if you're not, then you're not going to go far, because if you're relying on your coach to do it all for you, then that's not enough. So that's the biggest thing that I've done in my prep is that I freaking pump myself up. And my boyfriend gets irritated, because sometimes I'm like, wow, look at this, or I look great. He's like, yeah, you look the same. But I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm still going to pump myself up. Right. So I still see little things and little changes. And there's nothing wrong with congratulating yourself or letting yourself know, like, yeah, I freaking did that. What else can I do?
And I think bodybuilding is such an interesting sport because if you compete in it, I think there's this stereotype of like selfishness or like conceitedness or whatever. And you look at other sports and it's really not like it's not like that. Like people just see it as a sport. They just see it as like that's part of what the athlete's doing to do that sport. Um and I was actually reading Winning by Tim Grover, and he was talking about being selfish and the difference between being a selfish winner and a selfish loser.
And I actually had my client told me when I told her it was okay to congratulate herself, she was like, Christina, I'm not used to that. She's like, I have like basically our generation has shunned the idea of telling yourself you look good. Like if you say that verbally outside, or to an audience or to people, like if you tell people you feel good about yourself, it's almost looked at as a negative thing. It's like, well, that's not right. That's conceited. You like yourself too much or whatever. So she was always in this idea of, I don't need to like pump myself up. I need to like, just keep that low because I don't want to make other people feel bad even. And I'm like, no, like we need to encourage every woman and man too, because men suffer from, losing confidence in time. And like, we really all need to feel good about being who we are. And there's attributes and there's characteristics and even physical characteristics that we have that we need to be really proud of. Like, yeah, I have whatever, like for you got blue eyes, right? You could be like, I have blue eyes. I freaking love my eyes. Or I have this and I really like this about myself. Or I have whatever you have about you that makes you you. It's okay to own that and say, I like this part of me. Yeah. Now, what's the part of you that you like, so it's okay to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, like you said, I think people are almost afraid to do that because they're going to make someone feel bad about like how that other person is, when in reality, we can only control like what we're doing. Like if that other person isn't trying to improve themselves, that's not really on us. We can't really, like, we can try to motivate them and inspire them to do that. But past that, like we shouldn't feel bad for the progress we make. We shouldn't hinder our own progress if somebody else isn't willing to try to make any themselves.
Absolutely. And I have clients asking me all the time, like, how do I grow in confidence, or how did I become more confident? And I try to explain to them that I have everyone in this world, but I have a lot of insecurities. You just don't see those things, right? So it's like I keep my insecurities to myself and I try to continually work on those things. But the things that I am confident in, I'm okay with saying I feel good about myself, or maybe sharing my physique and my journey. Like, confidence can come in different ways, but you really need to emphasize the things that you like about yourself. Let that be something that you gravitate towards, because if you focus on the negative, that just leads down another route of depression and feeling like you're stagnant in results and then not wanting to do anything at all. So really elevate yourself with the things that are great, that are going great for you. And that's going to, if anything, it's going to continue your journey. It's going to keep you motivated. Like for me, as I started losing weight, as I started seeing ab definition, as I started seeing definition overall, I'm like, I feel great. I feel good. I feel confident. I feel like I can wear any outfit and feel good about it. And the way you present that to the world is either intimidating as hell, which, like you said, I can't control that, or it's inspiring and it's encouraging and it's motivating. And I hope and I pray to God that all those things is what people feel. I hope they feel encouraged and motivated. And especially as a coach, I try to express to people, you don't have to do the extreme things that I've done, but just know that it's freaking possible. Like if all you have is a slither of hope by the end of it, then I did my freaking job.
Yeah. It's crazy when I hear people say, I wish I could do that, or like even worse to me, because I wish I could do that. At least there's that still that wish there, but like I could never do that. Like that to me is like the most unhopeful thing that someone could ever say. And I'm like, in my head, or maybe even to them, if I know them well enough, like, why can't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you do that, or at least try to do that? If that's something like that you actually want to try to do and whatever, like just try it. Like, who cares if you maybe fail at it, but at least don't say you can't do it.
Absolutely. And trying is winning in itself. So like when my clients do their check-ins and they tell me, Christina, I had a bad week because I didn't drop on the scale, I'm like, what? When did we ever decide that a drop on the scale was a winning week? Like a winning week to me means that you still freaking showed up. A winning week means maybe you have progress mentally. Maybe you overcame a battle that you in the past maybe would have given into. So like there's so many other ways you can win with your mindset, with your physique and all the other things. It doesn't necessarily have to be limited to just one thing. So just trying in general, like you talked about, you might not be like getting the outcome that you want immediately, but that doesn't mean that in time it's not going to come.
And I think understanding the difference between like a success doesn't necessarily have to be attached to an outcome. It can be attached to like the actions that you're taking. Like if you're going to the gym, you're putting in the work, you're following your plans, that in and of itself is like, that is the thing. Like the outcome is eventually going to come, whether it's the weight loss or an opportunity or whatever that outcome is. You can't really control that outcome. The world will kind of control it for you in some ways. But if you're putting in the work, like that in and of itself will get you to a favorable outcome eventually.
Yeah. Taking one day at a time is like, that's the biggest thing that bodybuilders have to do. Like, yeah, you look at the future, you get excited about what's to come, you stay optimistic that way, but you have, like I said, you have to pump yourself up. And every single day that you complete the task that's before you, that's a huge win. And if anything, that just pumps me up for the next day. I'm like, all right, I completed this day. Let's do one more. All right, I completed this one. Let's do another one. I'm up for the challenge, because like you talked about earlier, where you have more in you, right? You have more energy than you think. You have more capacity than you think. And sometimes just going that one extra day just shows how much you truly do have in you. So
yeah, it's like we want to embrace our feelings in some capacity, but sometimes we want to like throw them away and be like, don't follow that feeling. Don't follow that feeling. It's weird how we kind of utilize them and sometimes we don't.
yeah. And I think that's the best thing about bodybuilding. We start to learn how to compartmentalize. You push your emotions to the side and sometimes your emotions kind of overflow and you can't control it. But for the most part, we just go full robot mode. Like, I know I have a different like side of me where it's like, all right, I'm getting my stuff done. My boyfriend doesn't try to talk to me until after those tasks are completed, because he already knows like how I operate, how I function. If I still have things on a plate and things I have to take care of, Like, we're not going to hang out until I get these things done first. Right. So once you get that structure, that routine, and something that is in place for you that helps you feel good, and you have the right support system and people that help encourage that, then it's like, okay, I'm happy here. I'm happy in this place. So yeah, it's all about just learning yourself and just trying to adapt with your emotions and with the strategy of getting that plan implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of wrap things up, what do you feel like, being a coach from the perspective of lifestyle and bodybuilding, what do you feel like makes the difference between a good coach and a great coach?
Cool. I think the difference between a good coach and a great coach is back to what I was saying earlier, not stopping at where you're at as a coach. Just because you competed does not mean that you're done, right? Like, you need to really advance your learning and your skill set and your practices, just like any great doctor would, right? Think of ourselves as that. A great doctor is not going to just stop where the school stopped. They're going to continually do research, continually figure out what is improving with the way that we're doing things. What can I do to optimize what we have set as a strategy? And how can I better assist my clients? Ask for feedback too. Like with my clients, I asked them, is there anything that I could have done differently to help you? Would you say that you were not successful because your mindset maybe hindered that? Or was it something that I did not do or provide for you? So be open to that. Be open to feedback. The good thing about being a coach is that we're already getting feedback from judges, right? Like if you're a competitor and you're a coach, you're already open to feedback. So why not get feedback from your personal clients and say, what can I do to be better? Don't think that just because you're a coach, you made it. Like, that's not going to keep the client. What the thing that makes you most successful as a coach is your retention. If your clients love the hell out of you, and even if they leave for a period of time and they come back, that's a really good sign that you impacted them in a positive way. And coaching doesn't necessarily mean that you have, or being a great coach doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the knowledge in the world. It just means that the knowledge that you do have, you're able to teach and coach in a way that is receptive to the client. So continue to learn those things so that way the client can benefit. That, like, it's all coming down to that. We're like teachers, doctors, psychologists, like we're helping them through so much in life. But you have to learn all those different types of professions and how they give that information to the client, and learn how to make it yours, right? Learn how to give it to the client in a way that they're going to receive it. Because like you said, going back to being a teacher, like a great teacher is going to be someone that is able to teach in a way that that child or that person was able to actually understand and process it. If you just know a whole bunch of shit, that's not going to help anybody, right? You got to say it in a way that's gentle, kind, and still in a way that is like relatable. It really needs to be relatable.
Yeah, very well said. I think that's if that's the only thing someone takes away from the podcast, I think that'd be a very valuable, piece of advice. So I appreciate you coming on, though. It was great getting to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Certainly. And before we head out, if you want to share your social media or anything like that, go ahead and you can do that.
Yeah, so I'm on IG. My IG name is at the Bikini Builder at the Bikini Builder. And I'm on Facebook. Christina Heath is my Facebook name, and that should be it. I don't have anything else.